The story begins with a boy running as fast as he can when he suddenly hears the roar of an engine behind him. Startled, he quickly turns around and sees nothing but clouds of dust in the distance, rapidly moving toward him. Nino immediately understands that it must be the farm owner coming to catch him. Terrified, he jumps into a nearby pit, desperately searching for a place to hide. He curls his body tightly, remembers God from the bottom of his heart, and prays that he somehow survives the day, that the farm owner does not find him. Nino's father had worked his entire life as a laborer on that farm, and just a few days earlier he had signed a contract with the farm owner on Nino's behalf. As a result, at just 10 years of age, Nino was forced to become the owner's laborer. But unlike his father, Nino did not want to spend his whole life working for someone else. So when he got the chance, he ran away from the farm. Before escaping, he also stole the owner's most precious possession, a gold pocket watch. When the farm owner discovered that Nino had run away and stolen his beloved watch, he went mad with rage. He immediately gathered all the laborers and sent them in different directions to capture the boy. He even announced a reward for whoever caught Nino. At that moment, Nino's father ran to the owner, begging forgiveness on behalf of his son, but the furious owner scolded him harshly and drove him away. Meanwhile, Nino reached a large tree where his sister had been waiting for him for a long time. He quickly changed into the clothes she had brought and asked her to throw his old clothes along a different path to confuse the tracking dogs. After saying goodbye to his sister, Nino ran off again. He kept running with all his strength, not daring to stop even for a moment. Only when night fell did he hide inside a stone cave. He ate a little food to regain some strength and spent the entire night in fear. The next morning, the farm owner arrived at Nino's house with the old clothes that the hunting dogs had found. He was certain that someone had helped Nino escape, and that person could be no one other than his sister. She initially said nothing, but the owner began threatening her, saying, "I'm telling you the truth. Your brother is in great danger. Everything is safe here, but outside there are thieves and robbers. Someone could kill him." Terrified and worried that something terrible might happen to her brother, the girl finally revealed the direction in which Nino had run. Nino's mother begged the owner to spare her son, but in his rage, the owner slapped her hard. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Nino finally spotted a building in the distance, clearly visible in the desolate landscape. It was the bus station, the most important part of his escape plan. If he could just get on the bus, he might be saved. Seeing the station so close filled the exhausted Nino with sudden energy, and he increased his speed. But suddenly, he heard the sound of an engine behind him again. Seeing the dust flying in the distance, his heart began pounding wildly. He knew it had to be the farm owner chasing him. The story had now returned to where it began. As the owner drew closer, Nino's fear grew. His breathing became rapid, and he tightly shut his eyes, as if surrendering himself completely to fate. Luckily, the dust swirling in the air saved him. The owner did not notice him. The owner immediately began questioning people around the bus station about Nino, but gained nothing. Poor Nino could only watch helplessly from his hiding place. When the bus he was supposed to escape on slowly left the station and disappeared into the distance, tears filled Nino's eyes. Buses came very rarely to this remote station, and the next one would arrive only after 4 days. But the farm owner was not about to give up so easily. Nino was not just a runaway laborer. He had stolen the owner's most valuable possession. The owner decided he would personally catch Nino, even if he had to search every corner of the world. He left one man behind at the station to keep watch and instructed him to capture Nino if he appeared, while he and the others continued the search elsewhere. With the bus gone, Nino had no choice but to continue on foot. Fear of being caught had made him so nervous that he panicked even upon seeing ordinary people. At one point, he slipped on a steep slope and nearly fell, but managed to save himself by grabbing onto wild grass. Using all his strength, Nino somehow climbed back up, but he didn't dare stop to rest and stumbled forward immediately. Then he realized that when he fell, his compass had broken and no longer worked. Escaping became even more difficult now, as he had no idea which direction he was heading. After walking for a long time, he came across a man watering his animals. The sight of water made the extremely thirsty Nino unconsciously lick his dry lips. He hid nearby, calming himself, and waited for nightfall. As darkness set in, he slowly approached, quickly took off his bag, and in his panic began stuffing the man's food into it. But the man saw him. As the man moved toward him, a frightened Nino suddenly turned and ran, but the man struck him with a stick, knocking him down. Even then, Nino managed to stand up somehow. He pulled a dagger from his waist and threatened the man, shouting, "Don't come closer or I'll kill you." But the man ignored the threat and continued advancing. Terrified, Nino ran again to save his life, not even having time to pick up the bag that had fallen to the ground. With the bag gone, Nino was left with nothing. No food, no water, just a lonely, helpless child. After wandering for who knows how long, he saw another building in the distance. He thought that people must live there and that he might get food and water. With this hope, he carefully scanned his surroundings, gathered his courage, and ran toward the building, gripping his dagger tightly as he entered. But inside, there was only a broken, old well, nothing else. Nino picked up a stone and threw it inside. He waited for a long time, but heard no sound of water. Seeing the dry, abandoned well completely broke him once again. Hungry, thirsty, and utterly exhausted, Nino could no longer endure and collapsed on the ground. After an unknown amount of time, a man noticed the unconscious Nino and tried everything possible to revive him. Sensing danger, Nino immediately raised his dagger to defend himself, but he was far too weak and the man easily restrained him. To save Nino's life, the man soaked pieces of cloth in water and placed them on Nino's lips, slowly bringing him back from the brink of death. When Nino finally regained consciousness, he realized that the man who had saved him was none other than the same man who had been watering the animals earlier. The man said nothing about Nino stealing food and instead happily shared all his belongings with him. He even returned the bag that Nino had accidentally left behind. From that day on, the two began traveling together. That kind-hearted man even gave Nino the cloth he wore on his head, so the boy could protect himself from the harsh sun. But the man already had very little food, and now it had to be shared between two people. So they made a system. One day they would eat, and the next day they would survive only on water, staying hungry. Whenever there was no food, the two of them would fill their stomachs simply by talking to each other, and when the hunger became unbearable, they would lie down under a tree and take refuge in sleep. Meanwhile, the farm owner, who had been chasing Nino for many days, divided his men into two groups and was slowly closing in on him. Around this time, Nino learned that the man's name was Roy. A little while later, Roy noticed that his dog, usually calm, was barking loudly and aggressively. From the direction the dog was barking, two men were approaching. Roy immediately understood that they were probably the ones trying to capture Nino. Without wasting a second, he told Nino to hide at once. Hearing this, Nino looked around quickly and found a place to conceal himself. The two pursuers soon arrived and harshly interrogated Roy, demanding to know where Nino was. But Roy calmly replied that he didn't know anyone named Nino. He answered all their questions so convincingly that they felt no suspicion at all. Just as they were about to leave, having accepted his words, their hunting dog suddenly began barking, pointed toward a nearby dry well. One of the men immediately set fire to some dry grass and threw it toward the mouth of the well. Hidden inside, Nino was terrified. He slowed his breathing to the faintest possible level so that no one would realize he was there. Even so, one of the men pulled out his rifle and fired a shot into the well. By sheer luck, Nino was unharmed to divert their attention. Roy said, "Yesterday I saw many vultures circling in the nearby valley. It's possible the boy is lying there, probably dead by now. What would you even find to eat here?" One of the men believed him, but the other suddenly asked, "Where did you urinate?" There was urine near the corner of the wall. It was Nino's. The man used this to check whether Roy was lying. Not knowing the correct spot, Roy guessed. It turned out to be a grave mistake. The men began beating Roy mercilessly. Even then, Roy did not reveal anything about Nino. They changed tactics and began speaking softly, trying to coax him. But no matter how hard they tried, Roy kept repeating the same thing, that he had not seen any child. To force him to talk, they slaughtered his sheep right in front of him. Those sheep were his only means of survival. Watching them die before his eyes filled Roy with rage, yet he still said nothing. The pursuers then threw the dead sheep into the same dry well where Nino was hiding. Nino watched each lifeless body fall beside him. His heart burned with anger. Finally, they even threw Roy's beloved dog into the well. Nino could no longer stay hidden. He immediately began climbing up. Peering over the edge of the well, he saw that the same man who had once saved his life was now being tortured by those cruel men. They had tied Roy to a horse and were dragging him in circles, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, playing with his life. Bruised and covered in blood, Roy saw Nino hanging at the edge of the well and slowly shook his head, signaling him not to do anything foolish. But at that very moment, Nino's eyes fell on a rifle lying near the well. Gathering all his courage, he somehow climbed out. While the attackers were distracted, he grabbed the rifle. Seeing the gun in Nino's hands, the men assumed that such a small child wouldn't be able to fire it. They raised their hands and began walking toward him slowly. At that moment, the hunting dog sensed danger and lunged at Nino. Without hesitation, Nino shot it. He quickly reloaded the rifle. The attackers were stunned by Nino's speed. In the meantime, one man sitting on the horse tried to lift his own rifle. What he didn't realize was that Nino had already noticed him. Nino took aim and knocked the man off the horse with a single shot. The man fired as well, but his bullet missed Nino and instead struck his own companion, killing him on the spot. Although the man fell from the horse, he was only injured in the ear. Refusing to give up, he immediately tried to grab his rifle again, but Roy managed to overpower him. Even after enduring so much cruelty, that kind-hearted man did not want to take anyone's life. He decided to let the pursuers go. Humiliated, the remaining hunter left silently. Afterward, Nino and Roy buried the man who had died in the misfired shot and quickly left the area, fearing that the man they had spared might return with reinforcements. But Roy had been beaten so badly that his body could no longer support him. Before they could go far, they had to stop and rest. From that moment on, the responsibility of caring for the injured Roy fell entirely on young Nino. Meanwhile, the hunter whom Roy had spared went straight to the farm owner and told him everything. Hearing this, the owner turned red with rage and swore to himself that he would personally capture Nino, even if he had to go to the very last corner of the world. The next morning, Nino said goodbye to the injured man and went alone to fetch water from a nearby area. As soon as he felt happy at the sight of cold water, he suddenly heard a voice. Nino became alert at once, looking around, thinking the pursuers had arrived again. But instead, he saw a strange man sitting on a wooden cart. The man's legs did not work at all. Facing the man's questions, the clever Nino replied, "I've only come here to fetch water." To protect himself, Nino lied and said, "My father and brother are nearby, grazing sheep." Hearing this, the man quickly replied, "I'm not a bad person." He told Nino that he had just made some hot soup and that Nino could have some if he wanted. Although Nino looked at everything with suspicion, he could not control his hunger after so many days without a proper meal. Very cautiously, he went inside with the man. Luckily, the man did not betray him. After many days, Nino finally ate to his heart's content. As Nino thanked him and got up to leave, the man suddenly said that there was more food left in the kitchen and that Nino could take it with him if he wished. Trusting his words, Nino happily went into the kitchen, but he saw no food there at all. At that very moment, someone suddenly slammed the kitchen door shut. Nino was now trapped. He began shouting in panic, but there was no response from outside. That was when he realized that the lame man had already left. Nino immediately pulled the dagger from his waist and anxiously began making a hole in the wooden door. He pushed his hand through the opening and tried to unlatch the door from the outside. In the process, his hand was badly injured, but at last, Nino somehow managed to escape. He ran out of the room and saw the lame man fleeing at high speed, driving away Nino's donkey. In truth, the man had done all this just to steal the donkey. Enraged, Nino chased after him. He picked up a stone and hurled it with all his strength. The lame man fell to the ground and began begging for mercy in terror. Hearing this, Nino spared his life. But suddenly, the man took advantage of Nino's carelessness and attacked him again. Now consumed by rage, Nino freed himself and repeatedly struck the man with a stone until he completely stopped moving. Nino panicked, thinking that he had accidentally killed him. Without thinking further, he grabbed his donkey and fled. He decided to bury this incident deep in his heart and never tell anyone. But when he returned to Roy immediately noticed the wounds on Nino's hand. After repeated questioning, Nino finally told him everything. Hearing this, Roy decided that they would return to the same well, and the two of them set off in that direction. What they did not know was that the lame man was not actually dead. Even more dangerously, the farm owner had already arrived there with two of his men while searching for Nino. The lame man lay on the ground, groaning and begging the three men for help, but he did not know that all three of them were extremely cruel. The farm owner had no concern for the lame man's life. His only focus was extracting information about the runaway boy, Nino. Once he had asked what he needed, he shot the lame man dead on the spot. He then threw the body into the well and continued the pursuit of Nino. A little later, Nino and Roy returned to the same place. By sheer luck, Nino narrowly avoided coming face to face with the farm owner. Roy silently noticed the bloodstains on the ground, looked around, and eventually pulled the lame man's body out of the well. He took the body out and buried it properly. That night, Nino and Roy stayed there, and the next morning they continued their journey. Soon, the two of them reached an abandoned station. There, at last, they came face to face with the farm owner, who had been chasing them for a long time. Roy immediately told Nino to hide inside a room, while he stood outside with his gun, ready to face the farm owner and his two men alone. The clever farm owner first tried to reason with Roy. He said, "I'm not after your life. I only want to take Nino back. This has nothing to do with you." But no matter what the owner said, it made no difference to Roy. He stood like a wall with his gun, protecting Nino. When persuasion failed, the farm owner offered a large reward, hoping Roy would hand Nino over. But even at the sight of so much money, not the slightest hesitation appeared on Roy's face. With no options left, the enraged farm owner tried to seize Nino by force, and a fierce gunfight broke out. Roy was actually a former soldier. His aim was deadly accurate, and within seconds he brought down both of the farm owner's men. But then his eyes scanned around, and he realized that the frightened Nino had disappeared. He immediately ran to search for him and finally found him inside a wooden shed. At that very moment, the cunning farm owner emerged from behind the door. Sensing danger, Roy instantly turned back, but it was already too late. The farm owner fired a shot, and Roy fell down the stairs. At last, Nino was once again in the farm owner's control. As Nino was being forced into the vehicle, the wounded Roy gathered every last bit of strength and charged back one final time. He dragged the farm owner out and strangled him with his bamboo staff. The farm owner struggled desperately for his life and fired his pistol wildly. During the fight, one of the bullets struck the already injured Roy again. Roy managed to kill the farm owner, but he too died from his wounds. Seeing this painful scene, Nino broke down and cried bitterly. Just days ago, this man had been a stranger to him, and now he had sacrificed everything for Nino's freedom. Nino carefully buried Roy's body, gathered all his belongings, and finally moved on. If you liked the video, please like it, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.